like to introduce today's speaker. He's somebody who almost doesn't really need an introduction. He's got so many fingers and so many businesses on the Cape, and he's been here for so long, I don't think there's anybody on the Cape that doesn't know him. But for those that don't, Dale Shadbegian is going to come up and talk about Google and how to get digital.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. See some new faces here. That's awesome. Dale Shadbegian, Vice President of the Tech Council. I have a multimedia business, Plymouth business. You may have heard of like 40 Under 40, Enterprise and Women. We put on different events. We have a monthly magazine, and of course, we specialize in marketing. SCORE volunteer, E4All volunteer, mentor. I've got a BS information systems. I was just telling Grace, I don't know what BS stands for anymore. And I've been working for like 25 years helping small businesses. I started off in corporate America. Heart wasn't there. I learned a lot, loved it. Heart wasn't there. I moved more towards small businesses. Today we're going to talk about Google and Google My Business. So specifically, when you do a search, right, I'm sure we all do many searches throughout the day, you can have local results and you can have really nation or worldwide results. We're going to talk today a lot about the local aspect. We've got a really wide audience here, so I'm going to try and focus on, like, if you're a small business or you have a physical business, like, what can you do? How can you benefit from this? If you're a searcher and you want to know, like, why do certain things rank and other things don't? Why does one business show up one and one's fourth and one's invisible? We'll talk about why some of those things happen. We'll talk a little bit about personalization. How do they know what we're doing? How do they tailor results from us? Where did they get the information from? How do they figure out who we are and what we're doing? And we'll get into a little bit of the steps on how to do it. So I'm going to be jumping around. This is going to be fairly technical. Stop me at any time. Raise a hand. I've got other digital marketers out here. If you have a comment or a question you want to elaborate on something, feel free to jump in. This will be totally just open kind of forum. All right? So start with a couple questions. Just show of hands, how many people research a business online before they would hire them? Like, you want to go type their name or you want to see what's happening with them. Just about everybody, except for sorry. How many will research a business online before they partner with them? You meet someone and you want to develop some kind of relationship with everybody. These are obviously geared so that everyone raises their hand, right? Online reviews are important to you, right? Has anyone bought anything that didn't have a review? Maybe once in a while. Company's culture is important. If you're going to partner with a company, or you're going to hire them, or maybe you're even going to work for them, that's another thing that Google is going to help with, attracting, I mentioned at the beginning, having a good, strong online presence can help you attract staff also, right? So how many people culture is important for the person you're going to partner and hire, right? Everybody, right? Seeing a little behind the scenes, seeing a little bit more than just an ad is important to a lot of people. So Google My Business, if you haven't, who's not familiar with Google My Business? Anybody at this point? Okay, Jane, this will be good for you. It's a free tool that Google allows you to manage the way your business is presented online when someone searches for you. And we'll go through all the different aspects of how they let you manage what people see. There's a lot of controversy on how you can get a Google business listing. You technically need a physical location and you need to have in-person contact with customers at the time you say you're open. And this opens a whole can of worms, right? So Cape and Plymouth Business, we have a membership here at Cape Space. Am I here 9 to 6 every day? No. Do I put that I'm here online every day, 9 to 6 every day? Yes. I don't want someone to think I work 1 or 2 days a week, right? So we put it down there. That's a gray area. A lot of businesses will bend this, okay? So understand this when I say it. We pretty much understand that this is going to happen. The reason why they say this is, imagine you want to order a pizza, right? You call at the time they say they're open and they're closed. That's a bad experience for you, right? people start getting bad experiences with Google searches, they're going to stop using Google, you're going to stop seeing ads, you're going to stop generating billions of dollars for them. So their goal is to give a really, really, really good answer for any time someone enters a search. Your business listing really should be the first thing, and again, this is a recommendation, should be the first thing that people see when they Google your business. Why? Because you have control over it. You don't have a lot of control over some of the other profiles that are automatically generated on your behalf. The business listing gives you a lot of control, about as much as you're going to get, and it's presented really nicely, and it's used by the number one, Google's the number one search engine in the world. How do you show up, right? So once you create this, you can't just create a listing, you have to actually work at it. You have to feed Google information about you, about where your service area is, and the kinds of things you do. And really only by training and inputting data into it are you going to get the most out of it.
Well, Dale, it's interesting about the in-person contact. I was talking to a friend who's a mortgage broker, and not out of choice, but they've actually found that their customers like using video conferencing. So they rarely visit someone in person now for a mortgage, business, or personal. It's all through video. So it's interesting.
We're going to see a lot more of that, especially I'm helping a doctor who's shifting their business model, and the medical field is going to totally change. We're going to see so much telehealth.
That's what I was saying. I mean, telehealth or even consulting as like a triage coach. Somebody has a medical problem and our system is so complicated. Where do I start? What questions do I ask? That would, the most convenient thing is online.
Right. So I'll pick on Karen here. Karen's got a web company and they do marketing also. Let's just say he's got an office in West Dennis, right? So let's say he's not actually there. Maybe he's working from home or something. The value is people still want to work with a local web company, right? You don't want to work with someone in California. You could be 20 miles away from where his business is. So I live in Dennisport, office is here. I might be at home working with someone, but I'm still Cape-based. People can kind of still see where I am, and they still get kind of an organic relationship with someone if they want to, even though they may not physically be sitting at the address that they say they are.
Statement.
Yeah, sure.
So we have here at Space, we have over 200 people who this as their business address. They pay a monthly fee for this, and we have been Google keeps changing the rules, but at the moment the rules are they're flexible enough that this qualifies them for a Google My Business listing. We tell them that it's use at your own risk and consult your SEO specialist like Dale. But most of these people we have never laid eyes on, and they are all using this as their Google My Business address.
What Google doesn't want is you open 100 locations across the U.S., right? And you say you're at all these places and you come up organically everywhere and you're sitting in the middle of Wisconsin. That may not be a great experience for a searcher. They kind of expect that, like, they're trying to help searchers connect to someone locally. That's the whole point of it. Does it go beyond that? Of course. If you want to Google business listing and you don't have a commercial address or you don't have a physical address, Cape Space is definitely a great option. That's why we're here. Other than we love Robin, we love Cape Space. We could spend a whole hour just on that one piece. So, I mean, we go about our day. We're busy in our daily routine. As business owners, just to stop a minute and think about what our customers are doing, our potential customers. Or again, I mentioned maybe staffing we want to hire, right? 97% of consumers search for local business online. Right? We already determined that. 76% of people, and again, these are studies, these are not verified numbers. People do studies, and this is what they come up with. A very high degree of people will visit or call a listing that they view within one business day. Okay? So my question is, where do the rest go? Right? I would encourage you, when you leave today, Google your name, Google your cell phone number. I Googled my cell phone number and I was horrified what came up. I actually made listings to replace it. It had nothing to do with me. It was a spam site, and it was my phone number, but it was like the dashes were in a different place. So it looked like my number. It was like, instead of 774 dash, it was like 7743 dash and something. I won't tell you what it was, but I was horrified. Google your business name, your business number, do some searches. You'll be amazed at what comes up. You could have a company with a very similar name in a different state that has a lawsuit, got a DUI, got arrested, something happening, like even just a misspelling, that business can come up. So I would really impress upon you, learn what's happening online and get a handle on it. If something doesn't look right to you, it doesn't look right to other people. Go ahead, Mark.
So I used to get a lot of weird phone calls, so I set up my phones and Googled the phone number and showed it to me. When my salespeople called up, I'm like, I don't want to buy any carpets from you. It's like, I'm trying to sell you PCs. I'm like, we're using the same phone number for your carpet business and your computer business. So it's kind of funny.
A lot of salespeople use this tool to target industries, right? So if they're targeting co-working spaces, they can type in co-working INS or IT, whatever, and then they've got basically a free lead list.
I think I know the answer to this, but just, does Google have any liability whatsoever if they accidentally send somebody to the wrong business or give out information that they think is on your business, but it's, like you said, somebody who's got a similar name that has a lawsuit against them?
So
Do they own anything?
you could sue Google. You could try. No, joking aside. I mean, I don't want to say Google's the evil empire, right? But it's pretty easy to say. They've got a big hold on a lot of things. They force digital marketers to do it their way. They're doing what they do, right? However, it's in their best interest of survival to give the best answer for results. So if you're finding results that are inaccurate, spam, especially scam, you can report them, and they take it very seriously to pull it out, because that threatens their livelihood. Your only other recourse is to go to the source and complain. And if the servers in certain countries, good luck. The US is not going to block traffic to it. We have free speech. And it's really at the source of the information, the web host, whoever's hosting, physically storing that data, they're technically the ones responsible.
So going back to your comment about your phone number and the dashes and everything, what did you do? What do you do about the stuff you find that is inaccurate?
That's a great question. So in this presentation, I have a link. It's a list of like the top 100 what we call citations. So if you've ever had to write any type of a white paper or something, you have to cite your source. You can create basically an origin or a profile of your company. Crunchbase, LinkedIn. There's like entrepreneurial profiles. You can create all these profiles, and I literally put my cell phone number there. I'm like, I'd rather get a call from a salesperson than someone else who might be on this other site that might find my number. My other choice was to change my phone number, which I don't want to do, and who knows, the new phone number could have something else with it, right? So you want to create, and we'll talk about that too, you want to create really rich profiles for your business too, right? Because you want these to come up. The more someone can find out about you, the positives, the better off you're going to be.
And Google will actually sell you a phone number from Google Voice. So I had a customer who wouldn't accept phone calls from anyone outside of Chatham. So I got a Chatham phone number through Google so I could like talk to that customer.
That's another thing. Salespeople have local numbers everywhere now. You're not gonna block anybody. Not to be pessimistic about it, but if they want to get around it, they will. So if you're not familiar, this would be a good slide for Jane. You do a search, right? This is Cape Space. This is called a branded search. It has the company's name in it. On a desktop, this is called a knowledge panel, will come up on the side. Well, we have control over most of this. We don't have control over the reviews, but we have control over the effort of generating good reviews. And I'll give you some tips on that if you want. We can change the hours, we can add photos. There's a lot more down here we can't see. We can do posts. So like during COVID, that was a big one. You could post if you're open, what your guidelines were. Now you can be used for anything. We're hiring, specials, feature, just like a Facebook post. It's not really widely used, but it's there. If you're on a mobile phone, it'll look a little different, but it's got all the same stuff. You'll see on a mobile phone, you've got the option for directions. You can save it. You can save it on the desktop too. We've got some different options on the cell phone. You can tap to call. Google tracks all this. They track how long we stop on a result, mouse movements, if we're mousing. I do a lot of site recordings. We're gonna enter into some like privacy sort of moral issues here. Don't judge me. I'm a marketer. I like to learn things. But you can have site recording software. It actually follows the mouse. Google's doing this. Facebook is doing this. Any app you have from a big company is doing this. They can follow the mouse. If you stop over this, they know you have an interest in that result. They're building this information about you. We'll get a little bit further into that later. And that can actually influence results, right? So if I type in co-working centers, Hyannis, and like WeWork comes up, they're not on Cape, but they're trying to get positioned, and 20 people click on Cape Space and one person clicks on WeWork, Cape Space will actually be weighted higher for that next result, right? Because it's kind of going on that social proof concept of, if the masses are thinking this is closer, I'm going to kind of retrain myself a little bit to also think that this result is a little bit more accurate. Really hot trend right now is voice searches, right? So in addition to Google your name, ask Alexa, ask Siri, business name, who is this person, say your own name, see what it finds. It's interesting. You're gonna find things that you maybe didn't know about. I have stuff from like articles from college that come up that I either forgot about or they came out. I was featured in my alumni book once from my college and I didn't even know about it. I found it. So this isn't all bad. You might find some new things out there that are interesting to you. Apple Maps, I'm not going to go too far into this. So Siri will uses some Google stuff, it uses some Yelp, TripAdvisor, the bigger profiles. It's going to build more of that into it, whereas Google is going to be really its own platform. So Apple Maps are going to work a little bit differently. You need to sign up for that separately from this. Okay, so you type something into Google, right? Why does one business come up and one doesn't? And I can't tell you how many times, you probably heard this, he's already laughing. I sell widgets in Hyannis. How come I don't come up why don't I come up #1 in search? And I'm like, I mean, everyone thinks that, right? It's so natural to you. The biggest thing here is, why do you know that, but Google doesn't? You know that because you've trained yourself to know it. You know what you do, you know your services, you know where you're located, you know what your business is about. Google doesn't. You haven't done a great job of telling Google who you are, what you do, who you service, and the geography that you're working in. Once you do all of that, and we'll go through some of the things that you're allowed to do, it's still going to, there's probably 1,000 factors. These are like the top 7. So obviously the content on your webpage, if you want to show up for pizza delivery, right? And you don't say it on your site, what good is that, right? Getting links to your site, so like any memberships you have, chamber links are great, right? If you sponsor an event or something, ask for a link to your website. If someone walks in the room right now and says, who's a graphic designer in this room? And like 2 people point to me and like everyone else points to Allison, right? What's Google gonna think if, everyone's pointing to her and just a couple people pointing to me, right? That's a backlink, right? So the more links that you have, especially relevant to so if she has a chamber listing and it's talking about graphic design or, print design or whatever, and then it's linking to her, Google's saying, I get it. 90 times that times 100, really starting to learn a little bit more about what you're doing. And what's important about that is She's not saying she's done doing it. Another reputable online entity is saying that she's doing it. Does that make sense? So Google My Business Optimization, we'll talk about that, all the things that you can do to input information to train Google on what you do. Reviews are huge, right? Especially if in your review it talks about the kind of services you provide and in the areas. You know, I hired this company to design my new kitchen in our Mashpee home, right? Those are really strong signals that company is a kitchen designer operating in Mashpee. The more reviews you have, the better. I get this question a lot. Someone left me a review, but I don't see it. Google has an algorithm now that they're trying to eliminate spam reviews. It's a big thing. Bad ones get taken down, good ones get taken down. Just part of the game, we just have to keep building. Behavioral. So I want to talk a little bit. So the citations are the profiles I said that you can create, and I give you a list if you're concerned about it. These two, the behavioral and personalization, I want to talk about that a little bit because is anyone aware that they track everything we do online? Has anyone heard this concept before? This graphic may be a little bit outdated. We think this is a lot higher than it is. No one knows for sure. They'll set up 2 tests and change one thing, or they'll go online and view 100 sites and then come back a week later and do the same search and see how it changes. There's a lot of really controlled experiments that companies do to kind of formulate what they think Google's doing. And then they sell it to people like me so that I can help people rank. But this behavior and this personalization, this is really going to be really big. So has anyone heard of Chat GPT, the AI software? So the difference is you can go to an AI software and say something like, you know, write me a 500-word blog on what to, you know, get my cousin for Christmas. You know, my cousin likes XYZ, and it will generate something for you. Google's doing something similar, but they're watching everything we do, right? So they want to personalize that blog for us, or they want to personalize a result that has the blog related to us. So what does that mean? That means we get great search results, right? So if I remember one Christmas, I wanted to get my son a remote control monster truck, and I was searching around. Look, I watched a YouTube video on this one. I wanted to get him something good, right? So I did my homework. I saw monster truck ads for like 2 years, and I'm like, guy, I bought a monster truck like so long ago. This is so old, but it's following me around, right? Google uses cookies everywhere we go. If you don't know what a cookie is, it's a little tiny file, or it could be even an image on a page downloads to your computer. And as you go from site to site, a lot of these sites have partnerships, or if you're using Google Chrome or you're on YouTube, it remembers you. It starts to know, do you like golf? Do you like vacationing? They don't trade this data with like Meta, right? AKA Facebook. But what they do, hold that thought for 1 second. So Google controls, anyone use Chrome here? Most of us use Chrome, right? So they know everything about us. Highest percentage of browsers, mobile browsers, are Chrome, which is owned by Google. Desktop browsers, mobile devices, so if you get an Android device, it knows everything, it knows where you're going. It'll actually follow you. You're smiling. Someone did a hack where they actually sniffed all of the data leaving the phone, and they walked around a city for a day, and the amount of data they collected on this person was amazing. They knew that they liked coffee. They went to a coffee shop. They did an online checkout, and they got like baked goods, and they know that they like pastries and baked goods. Knew all kinds of things. So every time you click OK, I'll accept the cookies. This is what you're accepting. Highest percentage of searches go through Google. 3/4 of us use YouTube. That's also a Google property. The apps that we use, a lot of them use Google technology. They actually have a coding platform for mobile phones. I think it's called Flubber. If you're creating apps in this, They're collecting data. You know, help us make our software better by, you know, watching your experience. As a developer, you can check that, and then that code it's watching what we're doing. So they've got all this data, right? What are they doing with it? They don't sell the data, but you can find a lot about people by using their ad platform. So if I run an ad and I say, I want to target, you know, men in their 50s who play golf, right? Google kind of knows that because you went to a golf course, you bought golf clubs, you did whatever, right? I run an ad and then I send you to my site. I know everyone coming from that ad is a guy in his 50s who plays golf. Now I have the information about you. I don't know it's Steve and he lives on this address. Well, I don't know that. Google knows that. But I kind of have his profile now, and I kind of understand what he's doing. Now I can do something with Facebook, retargeting that type of traffic, and that's how it starts to follow you around. So the third-party advertisers can start to know about us also, not directly, but they know about our interests, our demographics, and definitely our buying behaviors. So they're going to take all of this information, feed it back into search. I was bringing this back to the original point. So this is how our it's kind of like a digital shadow. Can't really see us, but they know what we're doing and where we're going. Does that make sense? Any questions? Who's super lost? Little lost?
Super similar.
I'll jump back into what you need or what you can find on a Google business listing. 8:34, we got about 5 more minutes. Address, phone number, website, description, photos. Photos are huge, right? You can add in like holidays, I'm closed on this one day, or my hours are different on these days. You can pick a category, meaning like, you know, you can categorize yourself by an industry or by a service type you offer. I'm not going to do this today because it's a little painful. If you set it up and you're not sure if you set it up correctly, the Google Business Listing, I'll help you with it. I teach a whole course on how to set it up. But basically it's going to ask you your address, your phone number, where are you located, how far of a service area do you service, right? So if you only want to service an area like 10 miles, right? You could be, so I have a heat pumps company, they're based in Centerville, they won't go as far as Chatham, right? So I can actually tell Google, don't show our listing more than, you know, these X towns away, or you can do it by radius, or you can pick the towns or counties. It's pretty flexible. Google's going to send you a postcard, right? So in theory, you can kind of trust that result that comes up, right? Because that person's been verified by Google. 90% of the time, they're going to send the business a postcard to the address that they specified. You can kind of get away with doing it out of your house. I wouldn't recommend it for a lot of reasons. One, it doesn't look professional when the map comes up. And I always say the way I got to Cape Space is I use my home address, and when the Google Maps car came by, I had like a pile of bikes out in front of my house, and it was like trash day, and I was like, oh my God, this is not the image I want to portray here. Shameless plug for Cape Space. So it's going to send you a postcard, and that address is what's going to show up in the map. So you have reasonable confidence that this is a real business, right? It's going to take you a week to get the postcard, right? It sounds like a lot of you have been through this already. Another big thing about why one business comes up versus another. So if you've got a business listing and you're not showing up, that can be one of the biggest reasons is Google doesn't know exactly what you do. If you think about our language, and I would encourage you to think about this even if you're a searcher, right? There are a million combinations for any given phrase. And I mean, that can be literally a million. So we could have, I'll stay on the co-working concept. You have co-working, 2 words, co-space working, co-dash working, spaces, companies, services, locations, near me, near the mall, in Hyannis, Mass, Cape Cod. I just named 5 different versions of co-working, and 6, 7 different versions of like where. That's 35 combinations of phrases. And then you add best, expert, great reviews, scam. You have literally exponential combinations of phrases that people can search for. All right, so as a business owner, what do we do? Like this is impossible. Google also has a keyword planner. It's a tool. So every time you type in a search, it logs it, and they give advertisers a tool to see what people are typing in. And you can see I put in, it's kind of hard to see here, but I put in WordPress designer, Barnstable County, English, company has set their language. English is a worldwide tool, so they're going to ask you that. And then I could do negative keywords. So I could put in like, I don't want any queries that have the word scam in it, or I don't have, whatever. This tool will output all the phrases that people are typing in the geography, the frequency, and about how hard they think it is for you to rank for that, right? So this is a great tool. If you're a small business and you want to train Google, you can actually map what real people are typing in into the search engine, right? And you want to look for intent. So look for, you want to think about what would someone type in if they wanted to use your services. Things like buy, rent, hire, for hire. Think about those words, just not the generic words like, you wouldn't type it, you'd not really want to be found for co-working, right? Because that could be anything. You could be doing research. Maybe you want to open a co-working center. You might be something like meeting rooms for rent, right? Meeting rooms is not a great phrase you might want to be found for, but rent meeting space or available meeting space. Think about that intent of the search, and you want to make sure you have that kind of content in your profile on Google and also on your website. What I recommend, and this is where we get a little deep in the weeds here, if you really want to incorporate all of this information on your site, I recommend a spreadsheet. So I pick a phrase, so I go to Google and I'm like, what are people typing in? And I start to group like little groups of phrases together, and I'll dump them in a spreadsheet, right? So just don't worry about the 3 columns here, just worry about the phrases. It could be widget designers, Cape Cod, widget companies. I try to get as many words close together as I can. I designate a page on my website, send them off to the web designer, and you say, hey, can you put something here? Or a writer, have a writer write the page out for you. You put it on your website, take the same content, stick it in your Google business listing, right? This is training Google that you're a widget designer on Cape Cod, right? We're going to train Google in all kinds of ways. This is just one way we can do it. So I take this spreadsheet and I plan my website out, and sometimes there'll be 10, 20 more pages, right? Remember, going back to Google wants to give us a really great answer for a question. You don't want to have a page that talks about widget company, widget agency, widget design firm, widget designer, because then Google's so confused. Are you a designer? Are you an agency or firm? Remember, Google's dumb. It's not. It knows that those are kind of the same words, but if 4 sites talk about a firm and you talk about you being an agency and someone types in the word design firm, there's a good chance you're going to come out lower, right? And it's not 100%, but it's possible. So maybe we create a page talking about you as a firm, right? Maybe it's a blog post. How do widget design firms hire great talent? Something like that, right? Again, training Google that this is what we do. And I'm happy to help anybody with this if they want. So let's recap. We have a Google business listing. We understand what Google is and why it does it, right? It wants to give everyone the best possible answer for a search. We've actually we've learned what people are typing into Google. We've picked like a pile of phrases that we want to be found for. We did some writing, we added it to our website. We got some backlinks from different organizations or things we sponsored. We're looking pretty good at this point, right? We have a pretty good chance of coming up here, especially in a low competition area. The next thing we want to do is you actually want to go to your listing, and they give you all kinds of ways you can further train Google, right? You can add a description for your business, right? And again, always think about those key phrases that people are typing in. You want to try and blend sort of natural speaking with some of the phrases. Some of them are going to be hard to incorporate in there. And there's a little bit of an art to that too. If you're stuck on that, I'm happy to help you with that too. Reviews, people can send you messages. Turning them on means that you have to have your phone on you 24 hours a day. My opinion is when someone sends a message to the business listing, it's like where are you located or how much for this widget. It's like not a great relationship builder. Photos. I started talking about this before. Photos are huge. You've got to have great photos for your business. If you want to get your car detailed, right? And you go to someone's business listing and the cars are they're blurry and you can't even tell if they're clean or not. And then you go to another site and it's like really sharp photography and it's like you can see the shine on the car and you're like, okay, you get a totally different experience from that, right? Hire a photographer, okay? If you can't hire a photographer, some of us starting out, when I was starting out, I didn't have the money for a photographer. Get a good iPhone, find everyone knows someone who's got a decent iPhone at this point. You can try and take the photos, you can train yourself on YouTube, and maybe send it to a photographer and maybe ask them to touch up a few of the photos so they look really sharp. Do not go to Google and type in images of cart detailing and then steal those. You're going to get sued. Just tell you that right now. I get that question a lot too. Performance. Google will tell us how many photos are being viewed, how long they're on our page, how many pages they looked at, what was the search term they used to get there. They're going to give you a lot of this data, right? And I think by doing that makes us a little complacent to the other end where we're like, yeah, you can follow me around wherever you want because I know I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to get a little treat out of it at the end. It will tell you really, really great information about how your website's being viewed, your business, how many times it's appearing, where they're coming from, age, demographics, interests. You get all kinds of great information that can help you feed back into your marketing. Steve?
With regard to photographs, if you have a set of really great photographs on your website, is there a way to keep people from reusing them?
No.
I thought that was the answer.
And people have gotten smart about it. So there are companies that embed codes and images, and when you use that, they search the web for that code, they find you, and it's not pretty. I had a staff member a long time ago, an intern, she used an image from a site, and they wanted $1,000 for every time that image was viewed. I ended up sending them like $300, but it was not fun. It was not fun. So I had a client that like, oh, just steal the image, and I'm like, no. First of all, it's immoral. Right? We think the web is free, but someone paid to have that image, and it's like a thing, you can't go and take it. He says, oh, I just take a screenshot, and then I crop it out. Then that way the code's not in there. I'm like, no, you can't do that either. That's almost even worse, because you know what you're doing at that point.
But can
you can't claim ignorance at that point.
Can you do anything to protect your phone?
No. No, my point is there's people out there screenshotting them. You can put a code in your image and you can search for it. You can't prevent them from taking it because once it hits your screen, right, it's been downloaded here locally.
So you have to put the effort into finding it if you would.
Yeah.
Or you have to trip over it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
you do a reverse image search.
You can. There are companies out there that will help you embed the code, and then you can hire them to keep an eye on it for you. But it's expensive, you know.
Couldn't you do something like copywriting? I know it can't prevent them from taking the photo and putting it up there, but are there certain copyright protections? I also know that if other people steal your content, doesn't Google penalize them if they see it's like?
If you copy someone's page word for word, someone's going to get penalized. It might not be you. You may have more authority. You may have more backlinks. You may have more information you fed Google. You may have been open longer. The other person might get penalized. They might actually get thrown out of Google because it looks like they copied you. You can copyright photos. It's really expensive. I don't know, Allison, if you have more.
He can actually speak.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The copyright notice is something everyone can put on their website, and so it's, the word copyright, the C with the circle, the year you come up with it, and the name of the owner. And so doing that on your website kind of covers everything in there. If you can embed copyright notice or some code in each image, it's even better. But at the very least, put that copyright notice on your site.
But to actually copyright a photo is expensive. It's
Well-
several $100s per photo, right?
If you want to go to the trouble of sending it into the copyright office, sure, but you get protection just by putting that notice on, so which you can do without having to submit it to the
Okay,
copyright.
that's good
Yeah.
information.
Whoever shoots the shutter, copyright's inherent. If you want to pay an attorney, you can sue anyone. If you took the photo, you own the photo. If you produce a piece of artwork, you own that, unless there's a legal document stating otherwise, where you have transferred the rights to someone else.
There's a lawsuit over a monkey. who pulled
But
the
there's
shutter.
other things like registering it you can do to technically help. But if you shoot the shutter, that's your photo.
Yeah,
You
Yeah,
own it.
the photographer said, I own the photo because it was my camera, but the monkey who worked at the zoo actually owned the photo because it pulled the shutter.
Here's the reality. You want to spend 20 grand to hire an attorney and go to court. It's a tough. This is just one of those tough things. Robert?
Just to say, I don't know why people are stealing photographs to use, but for me, whenever I have found my photos being stolen, they're stealing it because they're actually trying to steal my product. They're actually trying to steal my mailing address. So their business, here's an example. We had a law firm that booked a deposition here. They came one time, like 5 years ago, never saw them again. And one day, we periodically Google our address to see who's out there, squatting on our address. And these people came up, and they had a big right on their front of their website. Their offices are at 100 Independence Drive, and they had a picture of Anna sitting at front desk right there on their website. So it wasn't so much that they wanted the picture; they were just using the picture as to steal, the underlying service. So we just go after them and make them take it down, or a lot of times we're able to convert them into actually paying for keeping it.
Word of caution too. This is just a fact. I've hired a lot of people in my 25 years, like maybe fired more than I've hired. Overseas freelancers and developers, their copyright laws are different than ours, their cultures are different. They don't think it's wrong to do certain things. So I hired an SEO freelancer like maybe 8 years ago, and I got busy. I didn't want to grow my company, so I'm like, I'm going to hire this person to kind of take some of this stuff. Well, they created a fake person called Robert Karner, and he was the CEO of our company. And this guy created 1 million profiles, and this Robert Karner's name, took photos from places, and we were ranking. I was like, wow, this guy's really good. And then we started getting phone calls for Mr. Karner. I'm like, there's no Mr. Karner here. I don't know what you're talking about. So I go to the SEO guy. I'm like, so I start doing searches and I'm finding these things. I'm like, what's happening here? He's like, oh, well, you wanted to rank, so I made all these profiles. I'm like, why didn't you use my name? Like, why didn't you use my photos? He's like, well, you were busy. So, we have to be cognizant of these things. Like you said, you want to be number one. You're number one. What are you complaining about, right? So there's a method and a process we also need to follow. So just keep that in mind if you're hiring somebody to do this for you. You have something else, Mark?
Yeah, so you do reverse image searches to figure out who else is using your photo. You can set up Google alerts, and Google will email you every time your address shows up in a search.
That's a good point too. Yeah. Does anyone know what Google Alerts is? You can just Google Alerts. So I do this for my name.
It's alerts.google.com.
Yeah, you can put in a search term. Why don't you explain it?
Yeah, so I have a Google alert on Harwich and a different one for my first name and a couple other things I'm involved with. And every time somebody writes something about Mark Amorous, I get an email. So this guy got arrested in Ohio and he switched names because he wanted to outrun his criminal record, but he was dating this Amorous woman, so he switched his last name to her last name. So now there's a criminal record for me in Ohio for the same name, different person. And then when we were doing Geek Girl years ago, we'd warn people that don't use the same headshot for your business and your dating profile, because people will be able to tell that, oh, you have a nice candy store in New York City, but you're also running this, dance club after hours, and, the parents may not want to send their kids to the person running that kind of club. So you have to be very careful to keep your lives separate. People can find searches that way. Google, as a service, has a thing called location history, where they will tell you where you've been over the past month and how they keep track of you. I actually used that as my time card for a while, because I'd run over to Chatham and fix something, and then I have to run over to Hyannis and fix something else. I'm like, well, how long was I in Chatham for? So I'd look up in the location history, and I was at that address for 45 minutes, and people had a record of all that. And so you actually, and what I did was I wrote a routine that said every time, and it jumps around because it's based on your phone history with the towers and everything. So like every time I was like within, a mile of a place for more than half an hour, would spit out a time card for me. So Google, yes, can be evil, but they sort of sell you back. You are the product, but they give you the services back.
They give you just enough that you're like, all right, fine, you can follow me around.
Yeah.
They're definitely getting the better share of it.
At work, the kids are all wigged out because kids lost his laptop. I'm like, well, let me look where it is. Like, you know where our laptops are? I'm like, yeah, you're using my network. He's like, well, you don't have the right. I'm like, well, then stay off my network. How do you think I get the Wi-Fi to you if I don't know where you are? So.
Great points. Does anyone have a business listing here and want to improve it? So I can go into that, or we can just.
If you want a bad example, use me. I haven't touched my website
I have
in
worse
like
example.
15 years.
Yeah.
I just have too much business anyway.
I looked at your business profile. I was talking.
Okay.
No, does anyone want to learn about improving the profile? Is any interest there? Or we're kind of at a crossroads here. It's 8:54. We can cut for questions. I can wrap this up in 60 seconds. Yeah.
Dale, can you explain if there's any correlation between the Google business listing and Google Maps? When I travel, I'll go straight to Maps and, put in restaurants near me or something like that.
Yep, that's a great question. I'll finish the slide and then we'll go into that. So the moral of the story here is, when a business has a business listing and you're verified, you get all kinds of ways you can continue to train Google on what you do. You can add products, you can add services, and they'll let you add a custom service. So I put in all the key phrases. Best co-working spaces, best meeting rooms, and then it'll let you have a description. Every place in here that Google allows you to enter text, use it. If it lets you put in a photo of your team, get a photo of your team and name the file. Cave Space Co-working Team, Hyannis, Mass, right? We don't know, it's just good practice. We don't exactly know these little things, but be descriptive as possible. Add an update. Add FAQs, Are you open on holidays? You can add your own questions. Are your meeting rooms in Hyannis available on special holidays, right? Notice how I use meeting rooms Hyannis. And then describe it. If they give you 300 characters, try and use as much as you can. Don't go into nonsense about it, repeating the phrases over and over. Try and be natural, right? But anytime they can let you input that data, that's going to help you. We'll go back to your question. Does that make sense for everyone? How do you get the high level? We could spend an hour on each option, right? What kind of photos do I add? What aspects it should be? I can help you with all that if there's something that has an interest. So back to your information, when you go back to where this is. Actually, you can kind of see it here. Because we're telling Google where we are and what our service area is, that can restrict results to people outside of the area that we are talking about. So if I typed in a branded search, Cape Space, and I was in Ohio, this should come up always. If I'm, right, because I'm looking for a company, and it will show the map, right? If I type in meeting rooms for rent, and I'm in Ohio, this should not come up. Actually, I'll do a live stream. So if I type in, actually it's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Let's see if I can explain it. So if I just type in a generic search phrase and my location is on, it will show me the maps and it will show me all the business listings that have set to service the area that I'm in. Does that make sense? Everyone's saying yes, but Kate, I'm feeling struck out there.
No, I think I get it. Because when, like, for example, restaurants near me, when I'm
That's a great example.
right? Basically, it seems to be geo, but sometimes the results are not. And it also seems to be based on reviews.
Yes, so if we come back to this slide here, personalization, one of them is location, right? Location's gonna have a huge part of it. You can't be in Google Maps without a business listing. If I didn't make that clear, I apologize. You have to have a verified listing. You have to give Google basic information or you're not gonna show up. Unless someone types in your name directly. And I've had companies that don't fill it out. They don't show up even if you put their name in, right? And so it could be any one of these reasons why one company shows up and one doesn't. Reviews do have a huge role in it. But if you had a 1-star review and someone typed in your company's name, you still should come up. Like, it's your goal to want to come up. You also got to fix that 1-star review.
Does this have to be a for-profit business? I mean, can nonprofits, can churches?
Nonprofit, museums.
How about municipal?
You have to have you have to physically meet somebody in the area.
Town office, a municipal.
Town office, yep, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be for-profit, has nothing to do with it.
You have to conduct business in the area that you say you're in at the hours you state. So you could be a pizza delivery person and make it out of your house. You don't have to show your address, but you can say, I deliver pizza to Dennis and Harwich. And you get the postcard to your house, we're doing this. As long as you meet the people in the area during the hours you state, you qualify.
That says language. Can you have more than one language? Because there's a lot of Brazilian businesses on the Cape who are very fluent in Portuguese, very fluent in English. And if I just moved here from Brazil, I might want to deal with someone, who has not just like based in the US, but speaks Portuguese. Like, do they have to enter like that as the native language?
That's a great question. So if I typed in Brazilian bakery, right? Because I like the Brazilian bakery. If the bakery business listing is totally in like Portuguese, right? It's totally in a different language, wherever. There's a good chance it will still come up. It's still going to use all of these things.
But are they force you to pick one language, like a primary language?
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure who knows, I think your browser, you have to set a primary language too, right?
Okay.
You have to pay attention to your computer.
Yeah. So that's a good question.
When you set up your computer, right? They ask you
I
English.
just Googled the German word for bakery and I didn't get any location searches, but if I put the word bakery in English, then I'll get a whole bunch of.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's a great question though too. Like I don't do a lot of SEO outside of the country. So if you're in like maybe in Europe somewhere where it's a lot of countries are very close, I don't know how that would work. But I think here, if you have a US-based business, I would recommend you put it in English. I think so I have some clients that they translate their site, and what they tell me is they will search, I ask them to ask them, they search most of the time in English when they're looking for a US-based business.
Okay.
But yeah, I think you have to set one language. You definitely do in Google when you fill out the process.
Would you have two websites or two Google profiles? Like if I am.
You can't have two Google
Brazilian,
profiles. It has to be just one.
Could I own two computers? One was set up as.
You'd have like a Portuguese version of your site. That way, if you put an article on there about co-working in Portuguese.
Portuguese.
The people would come here and suddenly place on which one?
They're playing around a lot with translating sites too. You'll see non-English sites come up, and it will tell you that it's translated. But that's not an area I have a ton of expertise in. Question?
If you have a limited amount of time, is it more important to focus on Google My Business or your actual website?
Both. So, so it's a two-step process, right? I would recommend you tighten up your website 100%, because if I hand Ed a card, he may not Google me right away. He might just go to my website, right? So what I notice is people hire SEO experts and they say, I want to be #1 in Google. They're #1 in Google. Then they say, how come no one's buying anything from me? It's like, well, your website, maybe it's cluttered, clunky, doesn't look modern. Look at your competitors. Like, there's that second phase of what do I do now that people are looking at me. It's like being in front of a sales prospect and like totally fumbling your pitch, right? So you have to be able to get in front of that person, and then using the data they give us, you can kind of understand what people are doing, like how long they're on the page, why do they only view one page. There's a whole separate segment of what do I do once they're there, how do I get them to convert to call, buy, sign up for something. Does that make sense? I'll stay as long as you want to, but we're at our time here, so I don't want to hold anybody. Oh, this one we'll wrap up. If anyone has any questions, I'll stick around. All right.